Bradford bypass, planned along the route of the bypass. So the bypass goes from the Highway 400 to the Highway 404, cuts through the heart of the Holland Marsh, just a few kilometers south of Lake Simcoe. And so those town hall meetings were in lieu of public consultation process that never happened under the provincial ministries. The major concerns that we had was, one, the increasing costs of this highway. Now could be anywhere up to $4 billion, working out to $250 million per kilometer of this highway, because it's only 16 kilometers long. That was one of the major concerns. Two, there was concerns about Lake Simcoe. As I mentioned, it's very close to the lake. It also cuts through one of the major wetlands, which is the Holland Marsh wetland. And it's at the headwaters of Lake Simcoe, meaning whatever goes into those waters flows into Lake Simcoe. And then third, the Ministry of Transportation's own studies showed that there would be contamination of groundwater and private wells, as well as increased air pollution. So we wanted to let people know that the side effects of the highway that haven't been talked about because they're not very favorable for the highway need to be talked about, and we wanted the public to be aware. What's important to know is that it's 0% complete. In fact, the highway isn't slated even to be operational until sometime into the 2030s. So we have close to a decade or more before there's going to be anybody potentially traveling on this highway. As far as the studies, they're relying a lot on studies that were done in 1998. So we're now talking another century, a few decades ago. And because the studies were so out of date, they've actually exempted themselves from a full EA process that would be updated. So they have, quote unquote, streamlined this environmental assessment process. But what that has meant is that it's cut corners on the types of studies, the depth of the studies, the threshold that they have to pass in order to have satisfactory results. So they kind of made a mockery of the environmental assessment process. And Gord Miller, who was the former environmental commissioner of Ontario, became familiar with this case and said basically that they have done this in contempt of the Ontarian public, and that this is exact opposite of way these types of projects should be done, which is you complete all of the studies, make sure they're fully robust, and study all the issues before you consider any design issues. And that's not what's happening here.